City AM as a newspaper has always had a great and instinctive level of interest in innovation and in the forces that are shaping the sort of conditions and markets that all business has to compete in. And at the moment, one of the great trends and forces is, of course, disruption and innovation, and we see that quite clearly in financial technology in particular. So on the one level, it's interesting to see the philosophies behind that kind of innovation. Why are people starting up these products and services and companies? What problem have they identified that perhaps had been left to fester in the old environment? And on the other level, of course, they're great business stories of their own. They're raising money, they're trying to shake things up, they're trying to run organisations. So we have an instinctive sort of a level of interest in the philosophy behind what they're trying to do, changing things, shifting forces in the market, but also there are great stories behind the businesses themselves. Fintech companies, like almost all other companies, are competing for audience attention, they're competing for the interest of investors, they're competing for media coverage in an environment which is frankly overwhelming in the amount of avenues and resources at people's disposal and the sort of competing forces for everybody's interest. So on one level they face the same challenges that all other businesses do, which is this kind of heightened, continuously bubbling media environment in which everybody's shouting and everybody's got something to say, and there's no shortage of people who will write it up for you. But fintech, I think in particular as a sector, have a couple of unique challenges. One of which is to determine whether they are A, responding to consumer demand and therefore riding that wave, or B, are they trying to change consumers' perspectives and therefore trying to bring about a wave of their own. And those two strands pose quite distinct challenges. But ultimately they need to be able to demonstrate credibility. They need to be able to demonstrate an authenticity and an authority in what they're doing and why they're doing it, because it's not good enough just to say you're a challenger just because you're new. You have to be able to say I'm new and I'm challenging this, and I think people need to pay due attention to that. And finally, they need to be able to instill a sense of trust in the market, that they're credible, and in their potential customers, that this is not a fad, this is not a digital Ponzi scheme. This is something which is real and is solving a problem and will represent a great change in the way we do things.
As a startup, Ffrees faces two significant communication challenges, and I think some of those are probably common to other startups in the fintech sector. The first of the challenges is to communicate what makes us different, what sets us apart. And it's not good enough to say we're fintech or we're digital. That is a easily copyable attribute. So our major communication challenge is to explain to people how much they're paying for free if in credit banking, which is no longer free and never has been. This is a sector which makes £9.1 billion a year out of free banking. We have a second challenge, which is that in fintech, you're up against very big financial advertising and communications budgets. And so we have to be smarter, cleverer, more precise communicators to get our message through in order to fight above the clutter and to make sure that the special attributes that we have and our differentiation and our brand shines loudly. People often say to me that I'm lucky that we're operating in the fintech sector, as people like to call it. The reality is that it's a very, very difficult sector to get your message across in. Consumers don't care about fintech. They've never even heard of fintech, most of them. What they want is the best product at the best price that's relevant to their lifestyle. Communicating that against the onslaught of the huge budgets of the big powerhouse established order is a mammoth challenge for a fintech startup. So the reality is that if you're a fintech, you have to be very, very good at communicating or your voice won't be heard.
I believe that the biggest challenge for new entrants in the fintech industry is really to keep momentum going. When you are entering a new market as a startup, you tend to get the industry's and the media's attention because you are offering a new idea, a new concept, and everyone is willing to listen to it. But then it gets tricky, because what you need to do is actually show that you have substance and that there is a longer story to tell, that you are able to perform, that you are able to build a track record. And this is where it really becomes a communications challenge, because it's not only about being able to develop this, but also like, how do you talk about it? And there it comes very much down to building a very clear communication strategy. Instead of just trying to make noise in the market, you should really focus on being very clear about who your audiences are, what are the messages that you want to get across, and really focus on those when communicating. Because when you are entering a new market, like after a very short while, there will be other players trying to enter your space. And it doesn't matter at that point if you have been the first mover or not. If you are uncoordinated in your communications approach, you might get drowned out.